Okay, so now we're putting together some pistons here. So I already went ahead and measured all the clearances for these. It's the exact same process as doing the crank mains. Now, what we got here is these little circlips that are going to be holding the wrist pin in there. Whoa! Don't want that happening. So I already got the other three put together, just showing you this one for demonstration purposes. So we're going to stick this guy inside. In there. So you hear a snap, so you know it's seated. There we go. That is nice and see if that's not going nowhere. Next, take our wrist pin, put a little assembly lube on it. Just a little bit. Take this whole thing, nice and lubed up. And we'll do starter in here, nice tight fit. All right, and then we'll take our rod, get it in there, slide it home so it hits that circlip. There we go. Clean up that excess. Now if you see the top, that should be pointing to the front of the engine when you install them. Take our circlip. Go. So it's seated. There it goes. It's clipped in. Nice and good. No play in there. First things first. Now I already measured all the end gaps on all the rings here. That I'll actually just go through with you. Take a piston ring or your compression ring here. And slide it into the cylinder. And this will show you let's get it up there. Take your piston with no rings on it, slide it in here to straighten it up. There we go. And now we're going to measure our end gap for a few of these. Now spec is 0.010 to 0.017. So I'll just take a 0.18, and that does not fit, which you do not want. And I'll grab a 0.16 because I don't have a 0.17, and that fits in right there. Not too much resistance, but there is some, so that's how you know your end gap is right. Now, back to our little table. First things first, put the oil control rings on. That right here. Now the instructions, you want these, your little Guys, right there, facing towards the top of the engine. Take our tool, fancy little piston ring tool here. Come on, this thing's fighting. Alright, there we go. Slide that in there. Seated. Now, we got two little fin rings, little scraper rings that go on either the top or the bottom. So, I'll do it here. Set this one on the bottom. Now these, you don't use a piston ring tool, you just set it where you want it to land in there and you just roll it in carefully. It's usually too thin to fit the tool. There you go, there's one. And the top one will go 180 of that, so we don't have any gaps. It overlaps. That. Looks good. Alright. Now, we'll grab our number 2 piston ring. Now this has a dot right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's see. Right there to signify that is the top. Now I don't know if you're really going to be able to see that, but it is not completely square. There's a little chamfer right there and that's facing down. So let's take that. Place this guy way. Now you really don't want to roll these ones in. These definitely have to be done with the ring tool, or else you will snap these. And this top one doesn't have any markings whatsoever, signifying that it is square from top to bottom, signifying that it can go either way. And we'll face this 180 of this. Second ring, 180 degrees of that. There you have it, one completed piston. Alright, now we are going to set up piston for insertion into the cylinder. So what we're going to do here is lube up the rings with light machine oil, WD-40. I'm using PB Blaster because it's what I've got. Put that all nice and in there. Sure that the ring gap is still good. That nice and tight. No gappages. Right. Now with that set, same to do. You'll want the crank, the top dead center for the piston that you are installing, which I have it already at. Top dead center means crank. It's going to be closest to the top of the block. Flip this over, flip this down. There. Flip this this over. Like so. Get our arrow here. See that? Facing to the front of the engine. Let's see, we better there, how's that? Good. Alright. Very careful when you slide it in. Make sure your studs aren't going to hit the journal, the crank. That would be bad. Alright, right there. If you want to be extra careful, you can take pieces of like 3/8 fuel hose and stick those on the studs. So you're definitely not going to hit it. Now let me get my beater. You want to use your plastic or wooden end of a hammer. Never hammer onto it. You'll bust your piston. You'll be very unhappy. Alright, let's get her in there. You should go without any resistance. If it just stops and it's not fully seated, that means your rings aren't fully compressed and you got to stop, take it out, recompress, or else you'll bust off your your ring. So here we go, nice and gentle. Alright, that's it. That's seated. Do is prep the end cap now. Some more assembly lube. Nice and lubey. Like that there. Hold your hand there so it doesn't flop out on you. That'd be bad. Take our end cap. Get that back on. That's seated. Put our nuts before we start rotating it. It's definitely not going to pop out. Alright, now we'll get it rotated up to where we can actually work on it. Now you see I'm rotating this, and it does have some drag on it with all these, all 4 pistons in, but I'm still able to rotate this without any trouble. You always want to try and rotate it after each piston gets installed and torqued to make sure nothing's binding. On the ratchet here. Shouldn't have any trouble turning the engine over by hand.